of this podcast series of looking at the 15th anniversary of Doclab. My name is Kent Bai. I do the Voices of VR podcast, and a big fan of the Doclab over the years. Really enjoyed attending since 2018, 19, and 2020 and 2021. Seeing a lot of different work. Feel like it's really on the cutting edge of what's next when it comes to immersive storytelling and documentary filmmaking. So today we have Vincent and Caroline. Maybe you could each introduce yourselves and tell me a bit about what you do in the realm of immersive storytelling.
Caroline, do you want to start?
Yeah, so I'm Caroline Robert. I was at IDFA this year to present my film Brainstream, was premiere at IDFA. So I was really honored to be there actually physically. So it was great. And I work a lot with Vincent in all the projects that we did for the past 10 years. Vincent?
Yeah, my name is Vincent Morisset. I'm the founder of the studio AATOAA. I've been doing interactive projects for the last 2 decades. Been developing project with Arcade Fire at the very beginning and developing original interactive films with the National Film Board and projects on screens, in headset and in physical installation. So interactivity has always been at the core of our projects.
Great. Yeah, maybe you could each give a bit more context as to your individual backgrounds and your journey into this space of immersive and interactive media.
Yeah, so me, I studied in science when I was in high school, and then I changed it to art and more design school. And when I was studying in design, I was really interested in interactivity with a friend of mine, and we came to Montreal to do some kind of trainee, and that's how I met Vincent actually. And because he had a little studio back in the days, he will talk about it, but they were working a lot with interactivity, and we were really eager to find people who were working with this medium. And so that's how I started actually. And Vincent?
And like at the end of the 90s, I was in the film studies. I wanted to do films. And I guess I was that year where there was this kind of shift where we started to edit kind of audio thing with the razor blade and tape. And then the next year we were editing films on a computer. So I'm a product of that kind of shift. So this idea of wanting to tell story using moving images continue, but I shifted in a program called multimedia back in the days, but that passion of kind of film grammar, and then the possibility of new possibilities of presenting and telling stories with kind of a computer and using code as another layer to engage with an audience kind of came. So it's always been this kind of tension between those two worlds, kind of cinema and then technology, interactivity.
And what was your first encounter with the IDFA Doclab? Did you attend as an attendee, or was your first time attending there with a piece that you had there?
The very first time I heard about Caspar and Doclab was, if I move a bit, like there's this poster of Blah Blah. That was the first project, my first kind of personal project with the National Film Board of Canada. And at the time, Caspar saw the project and convinced my producer to screen the website in a film, like in a cinema. And at that time, I've been to premiere of website, and it was terrible and embarrassing, and it was like this kind of, okay, it's an intimate experience, and this thing is awkward, but somehow Caspar kind of nailed this idea of live cinema and presenting these kind of participative interactive project in good condition kind of change the way you engage with it. And this was pre-Twitch, right? So this idea of watching interactivity as a linear thing was kind of disruptive and a bit radical. And then I started to discuss with Caspar, the founder of Doclab, and it was this kind of intellectual and artistical crush. It's like, oh my God, someone that kind of likes and is interested to these new form of storytelling and not only obsessed with the technology and innovation So so it's kind of a long love story.
And Vincent has been a lot to IDFA, and I never had a chance to go because most of the times it's really limited, like the people that can fly. So it was my first time, but I've been knowing Caspar and so for a long time now, but remotely or when he comes to Montreal. So I have a relationship with them, but I've never been. It was my first time, so I was really happy to be able to go with Vincent.
Nice, very cool. Yeah, and Michelle sent over a number of different pieces and links to the past work that you've shown there at Doclab. Starting in 2013, you had a piece that you mentioned, Arcade Fire. It was like this kind of music video where you're interacting and almost like there's a way to kind of modulate what's happening on the screen by either using your mouse or your mobile phone. And so maybe you could talk a bit about this first piece that you had. Well, I don't know if it was maybe your first or second piece, but the piece called Just Reflektor, in collaboration with Arcade Fire.
Yes. So this project was I was interested with this project. That it was for the album Reflektor, that is about our perspective on life, about reality, and so I was interested in this piece, music video, to play with this tension between kind of a documentary form and fiction. We went to shoot in Jacmel in Haiti. It's kind of really kind of been catapulted in the middle of the streets and just kind of embracing and capturing what was happening, but with the protagonist and this kind of underlying narrative. And in this project, you're holding a phone and you're becoming somehow some kind of projectionist. And at what point you're becoming your own reflection, a bit like me talking to you in OEuvre. You're getting inside the music video and the protagonist is in your phone. So we're kind of flipping both worlds. So it was a really interesting journey where we pushed things technologically. We were collaborating with the Google Creative Lab in San Francisco with Aaron Coblin, and pushing the possibility of what computer vision was, like pre-machine learning improvement, I would say. So we were pushing the things technologically, but also kind of revisiting form and blurring the line between what is reality, what is fiction. And Doclab was a place where like, this is a music video for a band, and with a heavy load of like invented story, but Caspar has always had this kind of really embracing all kinds of kind of realities, I would say. So so it was I was firstly surprised to be part of that selection, but at the same time pleased, and it could engage discussions, so that's cool.
Yeah, I appreciated in that piece just the kind of like the ways that you have different filter effects or different things that are surprising, you know, like you see different effects, but then there's things that I see in that it's like, oh wow, how did they do that? You know, sort of there's a way of, because it's a video that's already shot, then I'm used to seeing kind of like Snapchat filters or stuff like that, where you kind of have these kind of real-time effects, but yet because it's post-processing, you're able to kind of experiment a little bit more, but it has that interactivity. And so yeah, there's a lot of really interesting ways of making you kind of, I'd say, kind of modulating your view into this world, that it feels like you're, I don't know, like almost like there's a portal that you're looking into the world, but you're kind of interfacing it through this it kind of had this etheric feeling, I guess, that was because it was, when I watch pieces, there's things that you predict and you expect what's going to happen, but there's in that kind of sweet spot of that novelty where you don't quite know what to expect, but it's not so mundane as to like just push a button and to know what to expect. So I feel like you were able to kind of hit those sweet spots of kind of using the interactivity to be surprising in a way, which I think is something that is not, is, I guess it's easier, or it's easier to say than actually to achieve that.
Yeah, we worked I collaborated on this project with like a big group of people, and Caroline was also involved in this project, and it was a lot of trial and error, and the interactivity was part of the, I would say, the message, in a way, in a sense that you're almost as some kind of puppeteer, and this kind of tension of, am I controlling what I'm seeing or not? And there's this kind of tension between this moment where you say, I'm wanting to transform what I see. I have an impact on it, but at the same time, it has its own life. So, and that was also part of the message, or the feeling that what we wanted to. So for us, it's really important that the interactivity is meaningful, that it says something, and we always kind of challenge like our use of interactivity.
Yeah, and this next piece that I have on the list is AATOAA.com from 2015, which was kind of like this like exploration of a space, almost like an open world, but it's very on rails. Like there's a singular path that you can walk down, but yet it's also kind of using 360 photo spheres in a way that you're able to kind of like feel like you're walking on a trail on this hike. And you kind of go on this adventure that goes through these different phases and chapters. But maybe you could give it a little bit more context as to this piece and 2015. That's still like you at that point we've had a number of different 360 videos that are out there, but maybe the tech was still fairly nascent. But it seems like you were able to either somehow create these photospheres and kind of stitch them together that made it feel like you're actually walking through a space, and I felt it was very compelling, but also to have this cartoon character that you're controlling within the context of that world, with some agency, but not too much, because you obviously is a photospheres that you're capturing, is you can't go too far off the trail, but it still gave me this feeling of being immersed onto this journey, which I thought was quite something with a kind of web interactive piece.
Kelvin, you want to talk about the good?
But for the introduction, Vincent talks about it better than me, but I can talk about it. When Vincent had this idea, it was prior VR headset. So he already had this idea of creating this 360 world, but really cinematic, like to have like a really photographic images, and to move inside this world in a path, but to have this immersive idea. So he wanted to do something that was web based, and afterwards there was this technology, VR came, and we had this ability to translate it into headset. So it was a great opportunity, but it was really done to be on a browser and create this immersive walk into the woods with the character. And as you said, you don't have a lot of agency, but you don't feel like you don't have agency, because you can stop everything every time you want and just go into those little bubbles of details and go really into like a microscopic worlds. So we wanted to create those two moments where you just walk or run or fly and have this really you have this feeling that you're really going through something that is some kind of a flow, and then you stop and you go into those tiny moments. So it was really trying to create some kind of a hyper lucid moment in a way.
And play with the elasticity of time, I would say, and how we look at things. So was this really that, and as Carol said, it was kind of a happy accident. Like we kind of brain picked people from the dome world at that time, and then we got tips from Chris Milk about the first like GoPro rig, right? So we were like at the very beginning of that. Our project took 3 years to do. So it was kind of a really kind of a interesting kind of synchronicity, where we barely adapted the project to fit in a headset with as a web VR thing, and still to this day, I think Way to Go is still a UFO in the VR world. It's that kind of like back in the days, web VR, browser based with this kind of 3D stitch thing on a linear 360 video. content. So so for us, it was kind of the discovery of another kind of canvas, but almost by accident. But the things that we wanted to achieve really resonated with what VR came afterwards, like this kind of question about presence, like the word immersive, and the all these things were kind of present in the premise of that project. But my base was more kind of, okay, let's use the premise of a contemporary video game. You kind of move around, look around, move, do things. But how could I do kind of a classic video game, first person video game, but with actual footage? So that was our twist, our take on that.
Yeah, well, if it showed in 2015, it took 3 years, then you're talking about 2012, 2013, 2014, you're working on this, and the Oculus Kickstarter didn't even come out until like August of 2012 and didn't ship until 2013.
Yeah,
so yeah,
yeah.
you're very early at kind of going into technologies that probably didn't have a lot of commercial off-the-shelf tools for you to be able to produce something like
there was
this.
nothing like even the thing with the GoPro. I think there was 1 or 2 person that were the kind of 3D printing this kind
with
of
a gyroscope, like a big pole we patented this pole with a gyro, so it doesn't move that much. So it was really an experiment.
Yeah, and the fact it's browser based and still, I mean, as a piece, it still like holds together in terms of being a compelling piece. And so, yeah, it's I think a testament to that artistic process of kind of tuning into where things are going. And of course, the whole 360 photo cameras and video. I mean, now if you were to produce this piece, you'd be able to just use all sorts of software and just be able to use that. But that obviously didn't exist when you created it. But moving on to another piece that I actually had a chance to see when I was there in Amsterdam in 2019, and didn't have a chance to run into you to chat about it, but it was called The Vast Body, where I remember there was kind of like this room that you walked into, and there was like either a camera or a connected camera that was tracking my movements of my body, and that there was a television that was there that had a lot of like pre-recorded photos of people in different body positions. And each time I moved my body, I would see almost like a stop motion flash of somebody else that was mimicking my movements. And it was kind of surreal because it felt like each time I'm moving, I'm seeing like this weird mirroring effect. So it was activating my mirror neurons, but it's not me. And it's like not only not me, but it's like a whole group of different people switching like so quickly. But I was really noticing in that piece in particular how I was watching what was happening on the screen and how that feedback was actually changing the way that I was moving in real time. So there's the experience of that piece, my own direct experience of the piece, which was a thing within itself. But then there was another element that actually, I think, was discussed by other people. I don't know if you've heard some of the different conversations, but there was a kind of like a hidden camera in that world that I wasn't aware of, that there was I was being broadcast out into a TV screen on the outside. And so there's kind of like the question of, how do you onboard people into this type of experience? Do they have an option to have that happen? Or if they don't know that's happening, then is that sort of a weird, violation of their, magic container that they're in? And so there were some people that I had talked to that saw that piece that had issues with that element of the piece, which was, that there is kind of another aspect of that where other people could see you as a performance as you were experiencing it. So there's 2 big aspects of that. I want to unpack. Maybe we'll start with the embodied experience, and then maybe what you were trying to create with the overall framing of that.
Yes. Where to start? I think at the very beginning, we were like in the last years, like we made gigantic progress into kind of computer vision and this idea of engaging with the world kind of without anything and just kind of expressing through our own gesture and be outside, expressing ourselves has always been something that kind of fascinated me. I've done Sprawl 2 also for Arcade Fire. That was also a dancing piece where we were interacting by dancing in front of your webcam. And I thought there's something quite compelling about kind of engaging through your own movements. And I was interested in kind of seeing the limit of this kind of a bit clunky AI, or and then pushing also the limit of the imagination of choreographers, and have this kind of deep blue Kasparov moment of the limits of the computer and the limits of the human, and kind of explore
how you can map the movement, because that was the both challenges. Like when we asked people, and I did the exercise myself too, was to trying to break all the possible movement of the upper body into some kind of a choreography, and each person approached it in a different way, and it was really, really interesting, like seeing different brains trying to map those movements. It was amazing. So we each had those intuitions, and actually it didn't took that much of recording to map not everything, but most of the movement that we needed to reproduce some kind of a fluid movement. And what was great is that you could never reproduce exactly the same movement as what has already been done. So it's never perfect, and that's what is beautiful. Is like if you stop on something, it's never quite the right angle of the end, and that is what is beautiful. It's like it's always an interpretation of something, but not quite the same. So it's to me, it's like a variation, like same as in music. There's a variation, a tiny variation that makes it beautiful. And this piece to me was really trying to break the linearity of a dance, and just break this, and it doesn't exist anymore. It's just images that you recombine, and because we've already been interested with non-linearity in animation, and this is like a great example of this is a linear video. We break everything apart, and and we have all those elements that then we recombine together to create another movement.
I think we have a different emotional connection, since it's photographic material. If we were just dancing in front of CG director, it wouldn't resonate the same way. So this also to know that actually people were kind of filmed, and that it's digest through our own movement. And as you say, at one point, being or meeting the other person, you kind of explore your own self differently, because you're seeing the other one, but you're like, okay, if I do that, what will happen? And that was one of the things we wanted to do, like, is to kind of revisit and like the potential of your own body, and you kind of zone out and become the other, and so that was something that was quite fascinating while we were doing it.
And also, I have the feeling that when you encounter those kind of pieces, you really have you are in the mindset that you're almost like a kid that is discovering something that he never tried before. You're like, what is this thing? I don't understand. So at first, people like just move an arm, then turn the head, and they just want to see what will work and what won't work. And at some point, you really are creating a discussion, and I think that is the most beautiful. People are not some are actually dancing, but we don't want people to actually dance. We just want them to explore the movement and just try to touch this thing and understand it. And when you said, oh, I thought people were not so sure about like having them broadcasts outside, and then they didn't even know. In the original form, we don't want people not to know. They know that they are broadcasted, and so I think depending on the setup that it was presented, sometimes people just missed this part before entering, and they felt bad afterwards. They felt that they didn't want people to see them, and it was really not our intention. So it's not supposed to happen like that. You're supposed to see that this might happen, and in some contexts, it's a really close bubble where you just one-on-one doing this, and this is great for the experience. But for the overall, we thought that it was quite beautiful in a way, and it creates those kind of living portraits, moving images that were for us beautiful, and that we wanted other people to be able to see and experience. And it's not everybody who likes to move and experience with their body, but when you see others doing it, you say, oh, maybe I should try, because it looks like a lot of it looks really interesting, and I want to try. So it was just to open a tiny door to people who are not really familiar with experiencing with the interactive pieces, and to open a tiny door to tell them that it's really intuitive and it's not something that is difficult to understand.
And the project evolved. Like we're presenting the project in a big museum in January, and in that version we have 5 monumental projection side by side, so it has this more kind of choral effect. So you are many people kind of controlling many kind of alter egos at the same time. So the project kind of lives in different form. But as Caro said, the idea was not to kind of make it as a surprise. It should.
And also, yeah, when you have this kind of other skin on top of you, I don't know. I had this sensory moment when I would look at this mirroring effect. I could see myself, but with this layer of someone else on top of me, I don't know. There was really something sensory, and there was this weird thing in my head that I was feeling that something was touching me, because I was seeing this layer on top of me. So, and when you see the image projected, you don't see just yourself, and it's really a combination. So it doesn't feel that exposing yourself. It's more of you're holding something, like you're a structure, and something is holding like on top of you. So I don't know. I don't have the feeling that I am exposing myself, but it really depends on sensibility. So I cannot tell for other people, but it's less to me exposing myself, having this layer. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely experienced that type of like mirroring, but also the nudging behaviors. Like I was seeing something that was not quite exactly what I was doing, and it was sort of giving me suggestions for how I could move my body in new ways. And yeah, when I saw it, I think I saw it with like an early press preview before anybody else was even there. So I imagine if there was a lot of people seeing it, then you would, maybe have more information as that there was a camera there that was broadcasting out. But it had come up in a couple of other conversations as well. But maybe as we start to move on, and there's a couple other experiences I want to talk about before we start to wrap up here. The motto.io last year, I know Casper had said that this was one of his favorite experiences from last year. And I remember that there was a live stream of it with someone walking out, experiencing it. It was kind of like a mobile phone app where you were getting little cards and suggestions and kind of prompts to go be embodied out in the world and walk around. And you had a live stream of someone doing a live performance of it that I watched a little bit of it, but then I was like, oh, well, I kind of want to experience this. But at the same time, I think I was also personally experiencing some of the COVID anxiety where I was like, well, do I really want to go outside and do these things? They're sort of really inviting people to go outside. And I think at that point I had been sheltered in place inside. And so I hadn't had a chance to see the direct embodied experience. But maybe you could kind of describe what this motto.io project was all about and what your intention was for having this kind of mobile phone way of telling this interactive story that's embedded and engaged within the world.
Yeah. But again, there was this idea of bridging real and fiction. It's kind of a scavenger hunt kind of project. It's a ghost story. So it's a bit like a ebook in the sense that you're flipping pages with text and sometimes with short videos. And the idea was to kind of revisit the way we interact instead of controlling stuff. The interactivity is more editorial, where we're asking people to kind of record little moments, like a 3-second moment, like find something soft. Can you look outside the window, etc. And these little videos are uploaded, and then you later in the story you kind of see these vignettes in another context, or seeing vignettes of other people doing the same thing in another country or in a city next to you. So it's something that is really personal, but at the same time has this kind of collective power to it. And again, it was this kind of interesting synchronicity. It also took 3 years to do, and pre-COVID, but add this kind of resonance into the world we're living. And to reassure you, this project was designed to be lived anywhere. So for each chapter, you can do it inside. So you can do it in your living room or like inside of your apartment, or for one chapter, you can just open the door and go walk in your neighborhood. So that was one of the challenge, to kind of ask people to do stuff that would work like in Tokyo, Cairo, or New York. And we worked with a novelist, Shawn Michaels. So it was like Caroline who did the editing, Edouard, like the wizard that coded all of our project, and Sean and I. And the live version of that was an interesting thing for us. Also, was a kind of different way to engage into that 1 hour and a half thing, and having someone else reading it just kind of resonated differently. But it was just different, like not necessarily better or worse, like just kind of a different way to engage with it.
And I feel this project, what it did good was to create intimacy with the character, because it's just text, but when you start, you really have this feeling that you have some kind of a conversation, even if your agency is really, you can just post videos. It's the only thing you can do, but you have the feeling that there's a conversation that is happening, and you are building the mythology of the memories of the character that is missing. So you really feel that there's something deeply personal about this piece, and you're part of what you do is part of this story that is really personal. So I think it creates some kind of proximity, and I don't know, people who did it were really touched by this ability to choose the tiny things that they wanted to share, and so.
And the other interesting thing is that it's kind of an unfinished film, right? Like shots are being uploaded every day, right? So we will also, it will become somehow some kind of a time capsule in a way. It's like, oh, like some of the clips are like, you can see people with masks, but in 5 years you have, other clips, if people still do it, that are like, I don't know.
I haven't looked at because we're moderating the images, the videos, but I haven't looked at the server for, I don't know, like 2 years. So I don't know what I'll find, but we add new things when we can. Sometimes I do a batch and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna add this, and it's good.
Well, maybe the last project we'll talk about here is the project you had this year called Brainstream. Maybe you could give a bit more context for what you were trying to do with this piece.
Yeah, so this is the project that my first project that I've written and directed and animated. So I had 2 envies. The first one was I read a lot about the brain when I had my kid, like before pandemic, and then during pandemic I was really fascinated by how we experience different things, anxiety, fear, joy, and I wanted to do a project that would show a little bit of that, but also that would tell us about the plasticity of the brain, the way it changes by learning, and how when you try to do something several times, it changes you. And at the same time, the interactive part was already present at the very beginning, because I was wondering if we could do something with all the tiny gestures that we do on our phones or on tablets or with our cursors on a desktop. And I wanted to use those tiny movements and actually use it for something that is useful and maybe that could help someone. So those two fields collide together, and I did this brain massage, which is really tacky when you say that, but I wanted to create this image in people's minds. Go, oh, what is a brain massage? And I just wanted to be able to go into someone's thoughts and as if it was a journey. So actually, it's a bit, it's a mix of a way to go, as you're roaming into something, and moto, where it's you have this intimacy and the feeling that you create proximity with someone, but with a collective effort in a way. So that was my intention, and I wanted to create a character that was really approachable and like you could relate it really easily. So I talk about anxiety and family relations, but with humor and levity, because I wanted something that would make people feel good. That was really important to me. And I wanted also the project to feel that it could soothe people in a way that you, after you watch the film, it actually made you feel good. You were here to help someone, but at the end, you're like, this was kind of nice. So that was my intention. And so I created some kind of ASMR visual and audio, because I was using a lot of podcasts during pandemic, like everybody in the world, and just having this voice inside your head that is just taking the room of your own voice inside your head, I thought was really relaxing and calming. And just listening to her talking to you with this lower voice, because we altered the voice, I thought that was something that would make people in this kind of open mindset to try something that is not usual, something unusual. And oh, sorry, I talked too much.
No, that's great. Vincent, do you have anything else that you wanted to add on that piece of the Brainstream?
But I think I already explained it really well. I don't have it.
Okay. Yeah, and there's some links that are available for people to go check out some of these experiences as well, so folks can have their own experience of these. But yeah, just as we start to wrap up and kind of reflect on the 15-year anniversary of the Doclab at IDFA, but also, just all these emerging technologies that you've been on the forefront of really experimenting with and kind of helping shape the form as it has unfolded. I'm curious what each of you think the ultimate potential of all of these immersive technologies and the process of immersive storytelling, what the ultimate potential of all those things might be and what they might be able to enable.
I think like as Gaspar said in his open, his 15 years were like in between, or kind of getting out of the infancy. I don't know. But I think the medium, the way we use kind of this digital vocabulary matures. We're better and better at using and engaging people and generating emotion. And for me, it's mainly that, and that's what I've really appreciate about Doclab, is this kind of really to be really open-minded and to kind of really focus on kind of subjects, on ways on the quality of the approach, instead of focusing on the technology itself. So, and I think a festival like IDFA Doclab is really important to kind of distill the way that we together as a community, we kind of figure out how this vocabulary can evolve beyond the platforms or devices.
Yeah, to me, we've always done a project that were online, accessible, and that could take a form in festival too. And I think we'll continue doing that, and hopefully, we'll be able to continue to do that. And what I really like about IDFA this year too, because it was my first time too, but the pieces that touched me the most were not necessarily the one that were super documentary, but those who through fiction or through different things, ask a lot of questions, and when you finish looking at those pieces, they can use as little as technology or as a lot of technology, but where the pieces would change the way you look at things. So I guess the vocation of IDFA will continue to be that, like, you engage in a piece that has a form that is different from what you're used to. So it asks you to be in a certain mindset of being open. So it will attract the people who want to experience those things, but hopefully we'll try ways to communicate about this project that will become more and more accessible in a way, and less driven by technology, so people will be able to just feel that it doesn't ask them an effort to go there and to try. And that was really difficult for my project, so I tried each time to streamline it to, it's a story about someone and it's a gesture that you do every day. So I feel that if we can bring like everybody to watch the pieces that we do, it will show people that it's not something that is close to people who are interested in technology, but actually that can talk to anybody, because it talks about subjects that are that touches us, so that could touch people too.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else that's left unsaid that you'd like to say to the broader Doclab or immersive storyteller community?
Thank you.
Happy birthday. Continue. We love you.
Yeah, and it was a strange edition for them, and it must have been really difficult with the gesture and the organization and everything, but we felt really privileged and lucky to be there, and we're so happy that we had this time with them, and happy to share today with you.
Awesome. Well, Caroline and Vincent, thank you so much for joining us today on this podcast to be able to talk about your own journey, your own work into this whole field, and also reflecting on the 15 years of Doclab. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ken.